I was 63 years old the first time I ate dinner alone in a proper restaurant. Not a quick sandwich at a counter, not takeaway eaten standing at the kitchen counter over the sink. A proper sit-down restaurant, a table for one, a menu, the whole thing. 63 years old, and I'd never once done it, because for 62 of those years, some quiet voice in me insisted that a table for one looked like a table for someone nobody wanted to sit with. I want to tell you what actually happened that evening, because it wasn't what I expected, and I think a fair few of you are carrying around the exact same quiet voice I was. I'm Connie, this is Connie After 60, and this is the channel where we talk honestly about travel, money, and living well, without pretending any of it comes naturally to everyone. This one's a personal one. Let's get into it. I remember standing outside the restaurant for what felt like 10 minutes, though it was probably closer to 2, working up the nerve to actually go in. I'd chosen a busy evening on purpose, thinking a full room might somehow make me less noticeable, though looking back, I'm not sure the logic held together at all. When the host asked, "Just the one?" my stomach did something unpleasant, and I very nearly said I was meeting someone who was running late, which would have been an entirely unnecessary lie to a stranger who genuinely did not care either way. I didn't say it in the end. I said, "Yes, just me," out loud, for what felt like the first time in my life, and followed her to a small table near the window. Here's the thing nobody had told me. The first 10 minutes were exactly as uncomfortable as I'd feared. I fidgeted with my napkin. I checked my phone far more than the message situation warranted. I felt every set of eyes in that restaurant land on me, even though, rationally, I knew almost none of them actually had. But somewhere around the arrival of my starter, something shifted, and I genuinely can't tell you the exact moment it happened. I started actually tasting my food instead of rushing through it to end the discomfort. I noticed the light coming through the window. I noticed a couple 2 tables over having what was clearly their first real argument in front of each other in years. And I'll admit I eavesdropped shamelessly, because that's one of the great secret pleasures of dining alone. Nobody expects you to make conversation, so you're free to simply watch the world instead. By the main course, I felt something I hadn't expected at all, which was a kind of contentment I couldn't remember feeling in a restaurant in years, possibly decades. When you're dining with someone else, even someone you love dearly, a part of your attention is always on them, on the conversation, on making sure things are going well for both of you. Alone, all of that attention came back to me. I ordered dessert purely because I wanted it, with nobody to consider or compromise with. I lingered over my coffee for 20 minutes longer than I needed to, simply because I could, and nobody was waiting on me to finish. I left that restaurant feeling oddly like I'd been somewhere important, though nothing dramatic had happened at all. I just had dinner, on my own, and discovered, at 63, that I was actually rather good company. I've thought a great deal about why it took me 63 years to do something so simple, and I think the honest answer is that somewhere along the way, I absorbed the idea that being seen alone, particularly as a woman, meant something had gone wrong. That a table for one was a table that announced a failure of some kind, a marriage that hadn't happened, friends who hadn't shown up, a life slightly short of what it should be. That's nonsense, of course, when you actually say it out loud, but very few of these ideas get said out loud. They just sit quietly underneath everything, shaping decisions you don't even realize you're making, right up until you're 63 and finally too tired of carrying them to keep doing so. I told Mare about all this over the phone, half expecting her to say she'd done it years ago, and I was simply behind, as she often is with these things. Instead, she went quiet and admitted she still hadn't managed it herself, and had actually turned around and left a restaurant once rather than be seated alone. We've made a plan for her to try it next month, and I've told her I'll be waiting by the phone afterward for the full report, whether it goes wonderfully or terribly. And since we're on the subject of things I've been avoiding for far too long, I'll remind you I still haven't switched my car insurance provider. It seems dining alone was the easier of my 2 long-avoided tasks, which tells you something about how thoroughly I've been dreading that phone call. If there's a table for one somewhere in your future that you've been quietly avoiding, I'd encourage you to book it. Not because it's some enormous act of bravery, though it can feel that way beforehand, but because on the other side of that fidgety, uncomfortable first 10 minutes is a kind of company you might not have properly kept in years. Your own. I've been back to that same restaurant 3 times since, always alone, and I ask for the same table by the window every time. The host recognizes me now, and last time she simply smiled and said, "The usual spot," before I'd said a word. I don't think I've ever felt quite so pleased to be recognized as a regular dining party of one. I'm Connie, this has been Connie After 60, and I'll see you in the next one.